First home buyers will need a 5% deposit to buy a property, with the government announcing it will bring forward its first home buyer guarantee. Buyers will also avoid paying lenders' mortgage insurance, which can add tens of thousands of dollars to the upfront costs of a home. But will the policy work? Independent economist Saul Eslake is with me now there. Hi there, Saul.
Hi, Cath. Nice to be with you.
Good to have you on the program. Now, this was a federal election promise. It's not new policy. What do you make, firstly, of bringing it forward by 3 months?
Well, it will help some people who are able to arrange their affairs to take advantage of the scheme sooner, to get into home ownership, to buy a home sooner than they might otherwise have been able to do. And you can understand why the government, having received such an emphatic mandate for a platform that included this policy as one of its headline features, is wanting to bring that on as soon as it can. The problem I have with it is that we now have more than 60 years of evidence that I think unequivocally and unambiguously shows that anything that allows Australians to spend more on housing than they'd otherwise be able to, be it first home owner grants, stamp duty concessions, generous tax concessions for property investors, shared equity schemes, lower interest rates, easier lending criteria on the part of banks and other lenders, or in this case, allowing people to buy homes with smaller deposits and without having to pay lenders' mortgage insurance, anything that allows Australians to spend more on housing than they'd otherwise be able to, results in more expensive housing, which in turn results in lower home ownership rates. And it's not a coincidence or an accident that our home ownership rate has been going down ever since the census of 1966, which was the first one after the first of these types of schemes was introduced by the Menzies government in 1964. These schemes result in higher prices. To be fair, the government has conceded that it will push up house prices, it says, by about 0.5%, which is somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 for a house or unit in most of Australia's major population centres. I suspect it may end up pushing prices by more than that, but it will be hard to disentangle the effect of this scheme from the effect of, for example, declining interest rates.
Just on that Treasury modelling there, that's 0.5%. It's over 6 years. What do you think about that time frame?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the detail of the modelling. I respect the modelling capacity of Treasury, and I don't think the Minister or the government are seeking to misrepresent it. But I suspect in the environment that we're now talking about, when interest rates are coming down and when confidence is rising, that house prices will continue to rise. And after all, Mr Albanese and his then opponent, Mr Dutton, said during the recent election campaign, even though it was ostensibly about the cost of living, that they both wanted house prices to keep going up, even though housing is the biggest component of the cost of living. And therein lies the real problem here, why governments keep doing things that make housing more expensive, despite ostensibly wanting to make housing more affordable, is because they know that there are far more Australians who want house prices to keep going up because they already own at least one than there are people who don't but would like to. And politicians get office by making people feel better off. There are 12 million Australian voters who own at least one property, 2 million who own one or more investment properties. That's a much bigger number than the 110,000 or so people who succeed in becoming first home buyers each year.
12 million votes when you do the calcs on that. The Prime Minister said this morning on Radio National, Saul, that this would make an enormous difference for first home buyers. How many do you think will be able to participate in this scheme? Just how enormous will it be?
Well, I think it will make a difference to some first home buyers, and I'm not sort of quibbling about that. But as I said, typically there are about 110,000 people who succeed in becoming first home buyers each year. Now, presumably some of those who've been able to buy a house anyway will take advantage of that scheme. And as I say, they're likely to spend more on housing than they otherwise would because they'll be able to borrow more, or they won't need to pay for lenders' mortgage insurance, so they'll be able to service a bigger mortgage than they otherwise would have been. There might be some who wouldn't have been part of that 110,000 who now will be able to join them. So maybe an extra 20,000 people, as a guess, might be able to become home buyers sooner, but to the extent that they succeed. Given that we're talking about a supply-constrained housing market, that means that prices will be higher than they otherwise would have been.